All right, let's dive into the world of Marisa Peer and her I am enough philosophy.
You've probably heard the phrase before.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere these days.
But we're going to go deeper.
Absolutely, a real deep dive today.
We're lucky enough to have excerpts from Peer's books to work with.
And some amazing testimonials from people who've actually used her methods.
It's incredible. This woman has been a hypnotherapist for over 30 years.
Wow, 3 decades?
Working with everyone, royalty, rock stars, even CEOs.
You wouldn't think those high achievers would struggle with self-doubt, right?
I think they'd have it all figured out.
But it's more common than you might think.
That's really surprising.
One of the things Peer highlights is that despite their diverse backgrounds, she sees 3 main archetypes among her clients.
Oh, interesting. Makes you wonder which one you might fall into.
Right.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, how does she tie these archetypes to I am enough?
Well, she connects it to 2 fundamental human needs.
Okay, and those are?
The need for connection.
That makes sense. And the deep desire to avoid rejection.
Those seem pretty basic, though. Why are they so crucial in this context?
So think about it. Solitary confinement is considered one of the harshest punishments.
Yeah, it is.
It deprives us of both.
You're right.
And even in less extreme situations,
Like what?
like homelessness, the feeling of being invisible or rejected by society
Yeah, I see what you mean.
can be more devastating than the lack of, material comfort.
That's really powerful. So is this fear of rejection driving us to these different archetypes?
It's not quite that simple,
Okay.
but understanding this primal need, it helps explain why we develop certain behaviors.
Like coping mechanisms.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Now on to one of the most intriguing aspects. The idea that our thoughts and words directly shape our reality. Is this just positive thinking with a fancy label?
No, it's much deeper than that.
Okay.
Peer uses this simple analogy. Imagine a cheeseburger.
Okay, I like cheeseburgers. Go on.
The same cheeseburger can trigger wildly different reactions.
How?
From joy and excitement to disgust or even fear,
Yeah, depending on the person.
depending on the person's beliefs and the mental images they formed around it.
So it's not about denying reality, but changing the lens through which we view it.
Precisely.
It's like we're all wearing different glasses.
Exactly.
Are there studies that back this up?
Oh, absolutely. There's research to back this up. In a study known as the Gifted Student Experiment,
I've heard of that one.
researchers told teachers that certain students were exceptionally gifted. Even though these students were randomly selected, what they found was fascinating.
What was that?
The teachers' expectations.
Like their biases.
Their words and beliefs about these students actually influenced their performance. The gifted students performed better, not because of their inherent abilities, but because of the way they were perceived.
Wow, that's amazing. So even external perceptions can shape outcomes. Does this apply to things like, say, a fear of flying?
Absolutely.
It's not the plane itself.
No, it's not the plane. It's that flying coffin imagery that we create in our minds.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So how do we use this to our advantage?
It starts with awareness.
Okay, I'm listening.
Pay attention to your language,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the things you fear or dislike.
Okay, can you give an example?
Like, for example, instead of saying your commute is killing you,
Right, yeah.
maybe it's just an inconvenient challenge.
Little tweaks. I like that. So subtle shifts in language.
It can lead to significant shifts in perception.
I see how these seemingly small changes could add up. Okay, let's move on to the familiarity trap. The idea that our brains prefer what's familiar, even if it's harmful, seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
It's like refusing to try a new restaurant because you're afraid you won't like it.
That's a great everyday example. But the trap runs much deeper than that. Think about how our tastes change over time.
Okay, I follow you.
Like, if you gradually reduce the sugar in your coffee,
Huh.
you eventually adjust and even come to prefer it.
Yeah.
It becomes the new familiar.
So we can rewire our preferences, even for things we think are hardwired.
Exactly.
That's pretty incredible when you think about it. And this has far-reaching implications, especially when we consider societal biases.
Right.
Let's take gender stereotypes about intelligence, for example.
Okay.
Studies show that girls as young as 6 are less likely than boys to believe that women can be brilliant scientists.
Or mathematicians.
6 years old. That's shocking. Why is that happening at such a young age?
It's because they haven't been exposed to enough examples
Like role models.
of brilliant women in those fields. It doesn't feel familiar, so their brains don't accept it as a possibility.
I see.
But think about the shift. In aspirations among Black children, After Obama became president,
That's a good example, yeah.
suddenly the idea of a black president,
Yeah.
a position that had historically been, unattainable, became
So
familiar.
it normalized it.
It normalized it, exactly.
So if we can change these limiting beliefs, what's the best way to break free from this familiarity trap?
By becoming conscious of what we're exposing ourselves to.
Okay, I like that.
We need to actively seek out diverse examples
You mean of success?
of success. Challenge stereotypes and expand our definition of what's possible. It's about creating a new familiar,
A new normal.
a new normal that's inclusive and empowering.
Okay, this next concept seems a bit counterintuitive to me. Why do so many lottery winners end up worse off? Isn't winning the lottery supposed to solve all your financial problems?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would.
But it's interesting, it often boils down to mindset,
Not like financial literacy or something.
not financial literacy.
Okay.
Many lottery winners, they go bankrupt because of a scarcity mindset.
So even with millions in the bank,
The belief that there's never enough persists.
so money doesn't magically fix a broken money mindset. That's wild.
It doesn't. Money doesn't magically solve money problems
Interesting.
if the underlying belief system is flawed.
Does Peer suggest anything to address this?
She does. She suggests this powerful reframing technique.
I'm all ears.
Think of money as energy.
Okay.
It's a way to shift the focus from a feeling of lack to a focus on output.
So instead of thinking about what you don't have.
You think about what you can create.
Got it. Can you walk me through how that works?
Sure, imagine writing down all your limiting beliefs about money, like I can never make enough or money slips through my fingers.
Yeah, I've definitely thought those before.
Now replace the word money with energy. Does it still sound as convincing?
I guess not. If I say I can't keep energy, I mean, our bodies are constantly generating energy.
Precisely. This simple reframing, it helps make abundance feel more familiar. It connects it to what you do rather than what you have.
That's a really powerful way to shift perspective.
It is, isn't it?
Now, this next principle seems a bit backwards at first. Successful people do what they hate first. Seriously. Who wants to start their day with the worst task on their to-do list?
It does sound counterintuitive.
It does.
But think about it this way. You have that one dreaded task, right?
Yeah, I always do.
Looming over you.
Yes.
It drains your energy, you procrastinate.
And it ends up taking even longer.
Exactly.
But how does tackling it first make you more successful? Wouldn't it just make for a less pleasant morning?
Peer shares this anecdote about a celebrity client who was severely overweight. And she advised him to go for a walk, a brisk walk, every morning at 5 a.m. before he could talk himself out of it.
Oh, man, I can only imagine how he felt about that. 5 a.m. walks are not very appealing.
He resisted, of course,
I bet he did.
but he stuck with it.
Okay.
And here's the surprising part. He gradually started to enjoy those walks.
Really?
By conquering that, what he thought was the worst thing first, he felt this sense of accomplishment that propelled him through the rest of his day.
I see. He set himself up for success right out of the gate. But what if you never learn to actually like the task itself?
There's still a benefit to doing it first.
Oh, so?
This is where Charles Duhigg's concept of the habit loop from his book, The Power of Habit, comes into play.
I've heard of that, but I could use a refresher.
It's about understanding the cue, the routine, and the reward that drive our habits.
So how does that apply here?
Let's break it down. Think of brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
It's so automatic now, right?
I don't even think about it anymore.
But it wasn't always a habit. Duhigg shares this fascinating story about Pepsodent toothpaste.
Pepsodent. Okay.
The minty sensation wasn't intended to freshen breath.
It wasn't. What was it for then?
It accidentally created a nationwide brushing habit. People began craving that tingling feeling.
Oh.
The reward.
The reward and the habit stuck.
That's pretty cool. So we can hack our own habits
Yeah,
by focusing on the reward.
exactly. And Peer suggests taking your most dreaded task and brainstorming a reward system that makes it more appealing.
So it could be as simple as,
Allowing yourself to enjoy your favorite coffee
okay,
after you've completed that challenging report.
makes sense.
Or a long run after tackling that pile of laundry.
So it's not about denying the struggle.
But about making the outcome more appealing.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
about shifting the focus from, I have to do this,
Yeah.
to, I choose to do this because of the positive outcome.
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering.
Incredibly empowering.
This is definitely making me rethink my approach to procrastination. Okay, now let's connect this back to the concept of delayed gratification.
Okay.
The Stanford marshmallow experiment
Oh, yeah, the classic marshmallow test.
showed that kids who could resist a treat ended up more successful later in life. But can we actually learn to delay gratification if we're not naturally good at it?
That's a great question.
Because I'm definitely someone who struggles with that.
Well, what's interesting is that it's much easier to delay gratification when we actively savor the reward. It's about telling yourself, if I finish this project now, I can really immerse myself in that book tonight and truly enjoy it.
So it's not about deprivation, but about enhancing the pleasure of the reward.
Exactly. And Peer points out that many wealthy people, despite having access to all sorts of rewards, they fail to truly savor them.
They don't appreciate what they have.
They haven't mastered the art of contentment, so they're caught in this constant chase for more.
That's interesting. It's not just about getting the marshmallow, but about how you experience it.
You got it. And it ties back to the idea of mindfulness. Even small rewards, like a cup of tea or a walk in nature,
Yeah.
can become much more satisfying if we take the time to truly appreciate them.
So instead of just mindlessly rushing through our day,
Right.
we need to create those pockets of enjoyment.
Exactly. Try incorporating small reward rituals throughout your day. Instead of eating lunch at your desk, take a few minutes to step away.
Yeah.
Savor each bite and appreciate the break.
Those little moments can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's get to the heart of it all. The core of Marisa Peer's philosophy. I am enough. Seems like such a simple mantra.
It does, doesn't it?
But she sees it as the antidote to so many problems. Why is that?
Well, think about the contrast between babies and adults. Babies, they're naturally carefree and confident.
They just are.
They just are. Until they start absorbing messages
Oh.
about not being good enough, pretty enough,
We're smart enough.
smart enough. It's like we unlearn our own worth as we grow up.
And it seems like even those who achieve outward success can still struggle with feeling inadequate,
Absolutely. Peer talks about how celebrities,
even with fame and fortune.
despite having fame and fortune, often engage in these self-destructive behaviors
Because
because deep down they don't feel enough.
it's kind of a sad cycle. So how do we break out of this cycle? How do we start to believe, really believe, I am enough?
Repetition.
Okay.
It might sound simplistic, but start by saying, I am enough, regularly out loud.
And what if you don't believe it yet?
Even if you don't fully believe it yet, make it a new, familiar belief. Write it on your mirror, set it as your phone background.
Train your brain.
The brain eventually starts to accept what it hears repeatedly.
So it's not about pretending.
It's about recognizing a fundamental truth that we've been conditioned to forget. We are all inherently worthy.
I like that. Okay, the next piece of advice is interesting. Accept praise, reject criticism. And this one hits close to home.
Does it?
I am so guilty of deflecting compliments.
It's a common habit. Think about a typical scenario. Someone praises your work.
Yeah, and then I immediately downplay it.
Right? Oh, it's nothing.
Or anyone could have done it. What message am I sending myself when I do that?
You're telling your subconscious mind that you're not worthy of that praise.
Ouch. I see what you mean.
And on the flip side, we tend to dwell on criticism,
Even if it's not helpful.
even if it's unjustified. Or it comes from a place of negativity. It's like we give more weight to the negative feedback than to the positive.
That makes sense. So how do we retrain ourselves to do the opposite? Our brains are wired for negativity bias.
They are. Peer suggests starting with self-praise. It might feel awkward at first, but the brain doesn't distinguish the source of the message as much as the message itself. So tell yourself you did a good job. Acknowledge your accomplishments, even the small ones.
I can see how that would build confidence over time. But what about dealing with criticism, especially when it feels personal or it's delivered harshly?
There are a few strategies.
Okay, like what?
If someone's being deliberately hurtful, you can simply ask them to repeat what they said. Often, when they're confronted, they'll back down.
That's a good one. I'm going to try that.
You can also directly address their intent. Say something like, "Are you trying to make me feel bad?" This forces them to acknowledge the impact of their words.
And if they just double down on the negativity?
Then simply state, "Well, that's not going to work. I'm not letting that in." Remember, you always have the power to choose what you internalize.
That's incredibly empowering. Now, on to sing your own song. What does music have to do with all of this?
Think about how certain songs can evoke certain emotions.
Yeah, music is powerful like that.
Listening to sad songs
Especially when you're already down
can reinforce negative beliefs.
and keep you stuck in a low vibe.
Right. On the other hand, listening to upbeat, empowering music.
Can lift your spirits.
It can lift your spirits. It can shift your mindset.
So it's like choosing a soundtrack for your life, right?
Exactly.
You wouldn't walk around with a sad song on repeat all day.
You wouldn't. And Peer suggests creating a playlist
Oh.
of empowering songs, songs that make you feel good, confident,
And motivated.
motivated. Exactly.
So surround yourself with positive messages, even through music. I love that idea. It's like giving your subconscious a pep talk.
Exactly.
This final point really resonated with me. Fulfillment before achievement. We're so conditioned to chase external success, but what if we're missing the point entirely?
It's a trap that so many people fall into.
It is.
They climb the ladder of success, they achieve their goals,
Yeah.
and they still feel empty
Why?
because they haven't cultivated a sense of purpose.
And meaning.
It's like climbing the ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall.
So how do we find that sense of fulfillment? It feels like such a big question.
Peer suggests revisiting what you loved doing as a child, between the ages of 7 and 14. It's a time when we're more in tune with our passions,
Before all the pressure kicks in.
less influenced by those societal expectations.
So it's about reconnecting with that innate joy and curiosity that we had as kids.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a career.
It could be a hobby.
It could be a hobby, volunteer activity, or just finding ways to integrate those passions into your daily life.
So it's about making space for the things that light us up,
You got it.
however we can.
Remember, it's not about being the best at something or achieving some external standard.
Okay.
It's about finding what brings you genuine satisfaction.
I like that a lot. That feels very liberating.
It is liberating
And when you're fulfilled, that positive energy spills over
into everything you do.
relationships, work, even your health.
Ex-
So to wrap up this first part of our deep dive, we've covered some seriously mind-blowing concepts.
We have.
The idea that our minds do what we tell them.
Right.
The familiarity trap.
Yes.
Delaying gratification.
The power of self-praise.
It's a lot to process.
So,
What stands out to you the most?
for me, it's the story about the celebrity client who learned to love those 5 a.m. walks. It shows how much our mindset can shift, even in small ways.
I agree. That was a powerful story. And the money as energy reframing exercise was really cool.
Yeah.
But here's a question that keeps nagging at me. If I am enough is truly a fundamental truth, why do so many people struggle to believe it? Why is this simple idea so challenging to accept?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It speaks to the power of conditioning.
Right. All those messages we absorb.
From childhood, from society, even from the songs we listen to.
We're constantly bombarded with reasons to doubt ourselves.
It's like we have to unlearn those layers of negativity to get back to that core truth.
It takes conscious effort,
Daily practice. It's not a one-time fix.
but an ongoing commitment.
To self-love and self-acceptance.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
I'm feeling inspired to start incorporating some of these principles into my own life.
That's the goal. Remember, the journey to feeling enough starts within. What steps will you take today? A journey worth taking.
It is. So in the last part, we were talking about the power of repetition and affirmations.
Especially that I am enough mantra.
Right. But how does this tie into some of the other principles, like accepting praise and rejecting criticism?
It's all connected. Remember, the brain tends to believe what it hears repeatedly,
Okay, yeah.
whether it's from others or from ourselves. When we deflect compliments, we're telling our subconscious mind that we're not worthy of praise.
Reinforcing those feelings of inadequacy
Exactly. It's like watering the weeds in our mental garden.
instead of nurturing the flowers. I like that analogy.
Yeah. So how do we shift this? How do we start accepting praise gracefully and not let the criticism get under our skin?
That's the million-dollar question.
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
Pay attention to how you react. When someone compliments you.
Do you immediately downplay it, brush it off,
Right.
instead of just saying thank you?
Instead, try simply saying thank you
And really meaning it.
and genuinely accepting that compliment.
I have to admit, it feels awkward to just accept praise without deflecting.
It does for a lot of people.
Is there a way to make it feel more natural?
Peer suggests this technique. Imagine the compliment as a gift.
Okay.
When someone gives you a gift, you wouldn't refuse it, right?
That would be rude.
You would accept it gracefully and express your appreciation.
So accepting compliments is like an act of self-respect,
Exactly.
not egotism.
Not egotism at all.
Okay, I like that. And on the flip side, when faced with criticism, especially the unhelpful kind,
Right.
how do we not let it sting?
Detach from the emotion.
Okay.
Not all criticism is created equal. Some feedback is valuable. Some is just meant to tear you down.
So how do we know which is which?
Ask yourself some questions. Is the criticism specific and actionable? Does it come from a place of genuine concern?
Oh,
If so, it might be worth considering. But if it's just a personal attack or mean-spirited comment disguised as feedback,
then what?
Peer suggests a few things you can try. First, ask the critic to repeat what they said.
Just makes them say it again.
A lot of times when they're confronted with their own words, they'll back down or soften their tone.
That's interesting. It puts them on the spot without being confrontational.
It does.
What else can we do?
You can address their intent directly.
Be like, are you trying to make me feel bad?
Exactly. This forces them to acknowledge the impact of their words, and it often diffuses the situation.
And what if they insist their intention was good, but they were just, being direct?
Then simply say, well, that's not going to work. I'm not letting that in. Remember, you get to choose what you internalize. You don't have to accept negativity or let it define you.
I love that.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it?
It is. It reminds me of that saying, what other people think of you is none of your business.
So true.
Okay, moving on. Sing your own song. How does music tie into the I am enough philosophy?
Think about how certain songs can instantly change your mood, like listening to sad songs.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty of that.
When you're already feeling down, it can reinforce negative beliefs, keep you stuck.
It's like choosing a soundtrack for your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling down, you wouldn't want to put on a playlist of sad breakup songs.
No.
You would choose something upbeat.
I have something to lift my mood.
Exactly. Peer suggests creating a playlist of songs that make you feel powerful, confident.
And inspired.
Exactly. Use them as ringtones, alarms, background music throughout your day. Surround yourself with those positive messages.
It's subtle, but I can see how it would be effective.
It is.
So it's not just about passively listening to music, but actively engaging with it.
You got it. It's about creating a soundtrack for your life that supports your well-being.
Makes you feel good. Okay, this last point really resonated with me. Fulfillment before achievement. We're so conditioned to chase success, but what if we're going about it all wrong?
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
We're taught to prioritize achievement. Strive for that promotion, the bigger house, the perfect relationship.
The picture-perfect life.
Right. But what happens is, when we achieve those things, we still feel empty.
Why is that?
Because true fulfillment comes from within, not from external validation.
So how do we shift our focus from achievement to fulfillment? It feels like such a big change.
Peer has this suggestion.
I'm listening.
Revisit what you loved doing as a child.
As a kid.
Yeah, between the ages of 7 and 14, before we started chasing validation.
So reconnect with that sense of joy and wonder.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a career.
Okay.
Could be a hobby.
Yeah.
Volunteer.
Just finding ways to integrate those passions into your life.
Right. And it's not about being the best or achieving some standard.
Right.
It's about finding what brings you satisfaction.
I like that. It takes the pressure off. So fulfillment isn't a destination.
No, it's a way of being.
Approaching life with a sense of curiosity.
Playfulness, willingness to explore.
Sounds much better than the constant grind of achievement.
Doesn't it?
So I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that mindset of enoughness, self-acceptance.
And pursuing what truly matters.
Exactly. It's recognizing you're worthy regardless of your accomplishments, embracing your gifts, and sharing them with the world.
In a way that feels authentic and fulfilling.
It's incredible how these simple ideas can be so powerful.
I really are.
I am enough.
Sing your own song.
They can have such a huge impact.
They can. It's often those simple truths
Right.
that hold the most power. And what's fascinating is how they all work together to create this, tapestry of self-empowerment.
It's all connected.
It is. It's all interconnected.
We've covered so much in this deep dive.
We have. From the power of our thoughts,
To the familiarity trap,
accepting praise,
rejecting criticism,
finding fulfillment.
and that I am enough mantra.
It's been a journey.
It really has. And for me, one of the most powerful takeaways is that we have so much more control over our thoughts than we realize.
That's so important to recognize.
Yeah.
It's the foundation for any change you want to make.
When we recognize our own power to choose our thoughts,
Our ability to shape our own reality.
it's empowering.
It is.
That story about the celebrity and the 5 a.m. walks really stuck with me.
I know, right?
It shows that even things we think are impossible to change,
Habits,
And
aversions,
they can be transformed.
with the right
A
mindset.
little persistence.
It all comes back to the habit loop.
The cues, the routine, the reward.
We can use that to make real change.
Absolutely.
The money as energy exercise was another big one for me. Oh, yeah, that was so insightful.
It's such an easy way to shift from scarcity to abundance.
It really is.
It shows how the words we use
The metaphors.
can really shape our reality.
They do.
But there's this question that keeps coming back to me.
What's that?
If I am enough is so true, why do so many people struggle to believe it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
I think it speaks to just how powerful conditioning can be.
All the messages we get growing up.
From childhood, from society.
We're always told we're not good enough.
Not pretty enough, smart
Not
enough.
successful enough.
So we have to kind of unlearn that.
Yeah.
Recognize those beliefs.
Challenge them.
It's a process.
It takes time.
Be patient with yourself.
It's a journey.
It is.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And even more, a lot to put into practice.
That's what it's all about, taking action.
I'm feeling inspired.
I am too.
I hope our listeners are feeling the same way.
Inspired to embrace the I am enough philosophy.
And create a life that's fulfilling and joyful.
That's what we all deserve.
Well said. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Did you get any of that?